Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to be looking for some conjunctions. So close conjunctions are conjunctions where two planets or a star and a planet or the moon on a planet or the moon and a star. Anytime that there's two interesting things very close to each other in the sky, it's a conjunction of some sort. An occultation is when the moon blocks out a star or a planet from our view. It looks like we're still in the countryside, so I'll fix that. Occultations and conjunctions, especially ones that involve the moon, they're very often only visible from a certain part of the world. Because of how quickly the moon is moving, the moon is orbiting around us as well as us turning around and us moving around the sun. And because of these things, it can be very difficult to actually spot a conjunction or an occultation. There might be one visible from a certain part of the world, but not from where you are living. Of course, with stellarium, we get to journey to other parts of the world. We get to look at the sky from different locations, including locations where it would be very difficult to see the sky in real life. So we're going to start here looking at the moon and Jupiter. So the moon is here, a nice crescent moon, quite close to Jupiter, and this is on the 14th of February. And just after that, on the 15th, the very next night, the moon is just on the other side of Jupiter. So that means some time between the moon and Jupiter setting here on the 14th, and they are very close to setting in the west, sometime between then and when they come around to that position again the next night, the moon has passed over Jupiter. So let's pull things back a little bit here. They should start to get a little bit closer together as we move through the night, although it's not much. It's very hard to notice the moon actually drifting across the sky because, of course, we only see it for part of the time. And we can see there the moon is a little bit closer to Jupiter, but it's not quite on top of each other just yet. So we're going to have to follow the moon. We'll go back to the 14th because they're a little bit closer together there on the 14th. We're going to have to follow the moon into the west. So that means we're going to have to travel over the Atlantic Ocean and potentially over North America into the Pacific, depending on how far these things go. So let's get up our location window here and journey into the west. We'll start by going just to the middle of the Atlantic. We'll stay nice and high. I might as well keep things roughly similar latitude. We can see they're a little bit closer together there, but not quite as close as they could be. Of course, we haven't moved particularly far. Let's move over past the Great Lakes. We're just along the border between the United States of America and Canada there. So the sun is just setting for them. As we change location in Stellarium, the time will change to catch up. It will adjust for our new time zone. So that means that we won't be able to easily or quickly say what time it would be in Ireland. We'd have to figure out where we are and what time zone we're in, and then deduct it or add it as necessary. But we can see the moon and Jupiter are getting really, really close together there as they set from this latitude. So let's move over just a little bit further. We'll go over to the coast around, I guess, Vancouver and Seattle over there. And there's the moon and Jupiter. And just as they're setting, they line up. So we can zoom in here and see that nice crescent moon coming up to a half moon, almost a half moon, right over Jupiter. Let's look a little bit closer. Just starting to resolve some of Jupiter's moons there. And, this would be in a city sky. If you are actually out in the Pacific, if you're a little bit further out, we'll move a little bit further out. We'll go out just to about there, and we'll get the moon and Jupiter back in view because they'll be higher in the sky. There we go. And we'll keep moving until we get them into the south, but I'll do that in a moment. We'll move out into the countryside, get rid of that light pollution again, and see if that improves our view of the moons at all. Well, not really. Callisto's just barely visible there, but of course there's a good chance that it's moved a little bit. And of course our perspective has moved. We are looking from a slightly different part of the planet. Let's keep moving because I'd like to see them nice and high in the south, arranged in this way. It looks like we're going to have to go right over to the middle of the Pacific pretty much. So we're just under the Bering Strait there. And pretty close to the middle of the sky, there is the moon and Jupiter right on top of each other. Now, that's going to be a little bit difficult for anyone to see. You might be able to tell from the location on the map. You'll just about see the moon and Jupiter really close together if you're at the edge of the coast here, just on the Pacific coast of the North American continent. You'd have to be way out here to see them on top of each other. And by the time we come back to a more populous part of the planet, of course, unless you're on an island, not many people live in the middle of the Pacific. Well, they are pretty much on top of each other there, but by the time they start setting from this new location, we can see that they've begun to drift apart. And we'll just follow this around a little bit more. We'll do this quickly, so we'll jump right into the middle of the continent there, because we're getting back around to the point where the moon would be rising for us on the 15th. And we can see the dates changed there. We've kept pushing forward in time, and we've crossed the international date line. So we can see that by the time the moon and Jupiter are setting here for, I guess, Kazakhstan, so I'll just saying Central Asia there. I'll move a little bit further over. Yeah, Baikonur, that's in Kazakhstan. So by the time the moon and Jupiter are set for Kazakhstan, they do look pretty much in a straight line, but the moon was here when we were looking at them from the Pacific, so it's definitely drifted a little bit across the sky. And as we keep coming forward here, getting into Western Europe, we can see that, again, there's definitely a bit more distance between them. By the time they've set, the moon has moved even further in its orbit, and I'll bring us back around to Ireland now. There we go, not very far. And we can see there it is, as we saw it on the 15th. So we've now followed the moon by traveling around the world. We've followed the moon in its orbit until it went from just below Jupiter or just west of Jupiter to right next to Jupiter and then out the other side. So this is something that happens with close conjunctions, with occultations. We can see here that for us here in Ireland, we're in a great position to see the half moon and the Pleiades next to each other there on the 16th of February. They're going to look great. They really will be, right on top of each other. We can see the moon there moving pretty much with the Pleiades. They're going to look great. For other parts of the world, that wouldn't be so achievable. And let's just say, for example, they look great for us here in Ireland, even quite early in the night, as we can see here. But if we travel to a different location, let's go all the way over. Want to make it a nice dramatic jump. I think it's interesting seeing these things like Aberdeen, that seems so much like names from here in Europe, like the names of Scottish locations, and seeing them in America. But here we are, and by the time the sun has set in Seattle, Vancouver, way over on the Pacific coast of North America, the moon has moved onto the other side of the Pleiades. And if we go back a night, it's still, it's practically there in line with Uranus. It's quite far away from the Pleiades. So that conjunction looks great for us, but you won't see it as easily in other parts of the world. And the conjunction between the moon and Jupiter looks great from the middle of the Pacific, but it won't be as easy to see from other locations around the world. There are formulas and tables that you can use to predict when occultations and close conjunctions will be visible, or if they'll be visible from your location. But you can also use software like Stellarium. If you are particularly good at maths, if you're particularly good at orbital maths and maths behind positions of things in the sky, then you can absolutely use various formulas and tables to work out when close conjunctions and occultations will occur for your location. But by using a piece of software like Stellarium, you can do it, I guess, a little bit more impressionistically. You can see how close these things are together and move around on your little map and figure out where they'd look best. So, for example, when we were looking at the moon and Jupiter, they got close together as they were setting in the west, and that meant that we should move west to get into a position where they would look good. Yes, I had to double check my directions there in my head. Here, we're going to see that the moon and Antares, just as they're rising in the southeast, they look very, very close together. So if we want to see them on top of each other, occulting or forming a very close conjunction, then we need to move east. So let's move east. We won't go too far to start with, just into Eastern Europe. There we go. And let's get back around to sunrise, if I can. Hopefully. Oh, I seem to have jumped a month into the future. Is that what I meant to do? It appears to be. So there we go. There's the moon just on the other side of Antares. So maybe if we move through the night, no, it looks like maybe we've gone a little bit too far to see that particular conjunction. So I might need to move back. This might look nice, a little bit closer to home than I thought. I thought I would have to move further. Let's go to about here. See how they look. They're definitely a little further apart there. Let's keep hunting around. I know there's certainly going to be a nice, at least a nice close conjunction, if not an occultation of the moon with Antares in the near future as we get into March. But I just want to make sure that I'm doing it here on the right days. So it looks like the moon is getting pretty close to Antares there. The moon does tend to move west across the sky, so we'll hop a little bit further west. We'll go over to Newfoundland and see how it looks from there. And yeah, they're certainly very, very close together. Yeah, right on top of each other. So there we go. It took a minute, and I believe I went the wrong direction initially, but we can see there the moon right underneath the red star Antares. That would make a fantastic photograph there, that half moon with the texture visible and the bright red star Antares. So they are a couple of upcoming conjunctions, one of them in early March and the other two coming up in February. One, the moon and the Pleiades, will look great from here in Ireland. The other, the moon and Jupiter, will look best, I guess, from the Aleutian Islands over by the Bering Strait, way over in the Pacific Ocean. I hope that you get a chance to see those, especially this one, which is going to look quite nice from here in Ireland. And of course, you've already seen them in a preview in this video, so if you liked the video, please do press the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you'd like to help my ever-growing list of subscribers. There will be a Q&A video in celebration of reaching 100 subscribers coming out next Tuesday. If you'd like to be part of the next milestone, all you need to do is subscribe. And of course, you can check out some of this information written down on my website, queebeanscontent.ie. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll see you next time.